Moments ago, host of the 11th Hour, Stephanie Ruhle, spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and she asked him to respond to those arrest warrants. Take a listen.
My response is no different from President Biden, who said this is outrageous, and many people across the political spectrum in the United States and leaders of democratic countries around the world have called it exactly that. It's a rogue prosecutor who's out to demonize the one and only Jewish state. And he's doing that by first applying a false symmetry. He's equating Israel's democratically elected leaders with the terrorist tyrants of Hamas. That's like saying, well, I'm issuing arrest warrants for, after 9/11, I'm issuing arrest warrants for George Bush, but also for Osama bin Laden. And in World War II, I'm issuing arrest warrants for FDR, but also for Hitler. Thanks a lot. That's a false symmetry, and it's totally absurd. It's a travesty of justice. But the other thing he's doing, he's using also, Stephanie, just this point, he's using also false accusations. He's saying we're drying out Gaza. Drying out Gaza? We're supplying now, before the war, 7% of Gaza's water, now 45% of the water, nearly half, to make sure they have water. He's saying that we have a deliberate policy of starvation. Deliberate policy. We supplied 500,000 tons of food and drugs, 20,000 trucks.
Yes,
We're fixing the roadbeds so those
sir,
trucks can go in.
But we've already heard U.S. aid has said famine is present. We've heard from Cindy McCain, who runs the World Food Program, who has said there's massive famine there. Are you saying that they're lying?
I'm saying that Cindy McCain, unfortunately, is misinformed, and I'm saying that the facts prove otherwise. We flooded Gaza with humanitarian aid, but before that, we supplied it with more than minimal amounts. And we fixed the roadbeds, we fixed the border crossings to make sure that all this food and all these supplies go in. We've enabled airdrops, we've enabled maritime routes, we're building a port there. The whole thing of a deliberate starvation policy is ridiculous, and it's put forward by a guy who doesn't check his facts. He's receiving it, as do others, from the UNRWA and other anti-Israeli agencies and from Palestinian sources. Look, they said just recently that they discovered that, well, they sort of were misinformed, that 10,000 casualties that were supposed to be women and children, now they say, well, we don't know that. I mean,
sir,
so they're fixing it. You know, it takes time for the truth to come out.
All right, and Stephanie Ruhle joins us now to tell us more about the interview. It's a tough one, Stephanie, because there are a lot of questions, as you were raising, about Netanyahu's decisions during this entire war since day one. And a lot of answers are, that's for later, that's for later, that's for later. What else did he say?
We actually went back to that day one, Mika, and we talked about sort of the power of Hamas, how October 7th happened, and if Prime Minister Netanyahu underestimated their capabilities. Take a look at this. Back in December, the New York Times reported that you encouraged payments to Hamas from Qatar shortly before the October 7th attack. Did you underestimate what Hamas was capable of doing?
Well, first of all, I did everything in my power to degrade Hamas's military power. I led 3 major military operations against Hamas, which eliminated about 6,000 of their fighters and some of their key leaders, but it didn't root them out. And I think what we're trying to do now is root them out, not have them resurge again, come back out of Rafah with their 4 battalions, retake the Gaza Strip, and then do what they vowed to do, to repeat the horrible October 7th massacre of raping women, beheading women, burning babies, taking hostages. They want to do it over and over again. We can't let them do it. As far as the money that was given to them, it was given to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe, to make sure that the water pumps work, that the sewage pumps work, the electricity works. That was the goal. But we did everything in our power to degrade their military power. Now we want to root them out and get a civilian administration that is not beholden to them and is not beholden to the idea of destroying Israel. That's the way forward.
That was the goal, sir. That was the goal. But October 7th happened, and now you're in a full-blown war. So did you underestimate what Hamas was capable of?
Well, we certainly were surprised on that day. There's no question about that. But we got back on our feet immediately, and we're driving Hamas out. We're doing it in the most difficult the most difficult urban warfare conditions of modern times, because they have 35,000 terrorists in a dense urban area, 50 meters above ground, 50 meters in a terror tunnel system of 500 kilometers of terror tunnels. It's enormous. And I think they underestimated the fact that we could take them out once we turn things around, and we are. And we're committed to doing it, to finish it. It's not easy. We're getting a bum rap in the international scene. I mean, you have this travesty where the leaders of Israel are being called war criminals when we're fighting war criminals. We're fighting these genocidal Hamas monsters. And then a court that was set up to prevent the repeat of the Holocaust genocide and other such savageries is accusing Israel of such crimes. It's absurd. But, we have to, we have to fight it. The way we fight it is by fighting and winning, and we will.
Mika, he sort of lays it out, fighting and we're going to win, and he's got this game plan, but you can't say that, yes, we're going to just wrap this thing up. This path to peace that he sees is riddled with civilian death and destruction, and at the same time, there are still hostages who have not been returned home. It's a devastating situation.
Steph, nice work pressing him there. He says game plan. The world is watching what he'll do with Rafah. Did he give any sense as to what and when that operation will look like? And also this new domestic pushback he's facing at home, where it seems like his grip on power is as threatened as it's been since October 7th.
Absolutely. He could face another election this year, right? And he keeps saying, after we go into Rafah, they haven't defeated Hamas in other places, right? President Biden just said you've got certain parts of Gaza where Hamas is popping back up. The IDF is now saying they're fighting Hamas again. So even his argument, well, we just have to get them in Rafah, they're not just in Rafah.
All right, Stephanie Ruhle, thank you very much. Tough interview. We really appreciate it. We'll be watching more of this interview that you had with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tonight on the 11th hour at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on MSNBC. Thank you, Steph. And